Hello friends, I hope you're doing really well wherever you are in the world. I've been a little bit stressed out lately for many reasons, and one of the things that has really helped me calm down and find joy is creating abstract art on my iPad. It is so nice to play with colors and shapes and not feel any pressure whatsoever about what the outcome should be. So I thought I'd share my process with you in this video so that you can try it out for yourself. Grab your iPad and Apple Pencil and your favorite beverage, and let's take a bit of time out for ourselves to be creative. We're going to be using the Procreate app as always, and we're just going to start with a new canvas, and you can use any size canvas. And then of course we will need brushes as well, and I thought I'll set myself a little challenge and only use brushes from one brush set, and that is going to be the IPL Fruit Painting brush set. We are going to start with the watercolor paper grainy brush to create the watercolor texture background. I'm going to start with a middle gray here and then set the brush all the way up to the max, and then just going to paint on the background. You can see how this creates a really nice texture, but we're going to make it even nicer. Open the layers panel and duplicate this layer, and then set the top layer to multiply and the bottom layer to color burn. These two layers will create a super nice watercolor effect. Then we're going to create another new layer, and this is the layer that we are going to paint on, and you want to place this layer just above your background layer. Make sure that the layers with your watercolor paper are on top, and to make this a little bit easier, I recommend that you group these two layers and then lock the group so that you're not accidentally painting on this layer. The amount of times this has happened to me, and then it's really hard to undo, so I really recommend that you do this first, and then you can also create a few more layers. I always like having a few spare layers before I start painting. Alright, so now we're going to select the first layer, and then you want to grab your IPL watercolor shape brush to start with. And you want to make the brush reasonably large, so maybe 25% is a good start. And then we are also going to grab our colors, and I really like having the color selector sort of like this on the side. And then I can just grab whatever color I feel like using. And to start with, let's select a nice orange color. You don't want to make the color too bright. You want to keep them in the pastel range, and you'll see later on why that is. So now all we're going to do is paint some circles like this, and the way to do this is to never lift off your Apple Pencil off your iPad. Just keep going, create the circle, and you can also go over the edges a little bit more just to create this darker edge with not too much pressure. And now this is looking really nice. Then we're going to create a new layer, or select one of the layers that you've already created. And the reason why I recommend that you select a new layer after each shape is so that you can change them independently from each other, which can be super handy. My next color is a light pink, and I'm creating another circle, and now I'm repeating the process until I've got my whole page filled with circles. When you're creating these circles, remember to never lift the Apple Pencil off of your iPad and keep painting. Go over the edges a little bit more to make them ever so slightly darker, and then create a new layer, select a new color, and keep painting circles. So now the next step is to rearrange the circles a little bit on the page, and what we want to do is align them so that we have a little bit of an overlap between some of the shapes. Not all the shapes have to overlap, but I think most of them overlapping looks really nice. So these two are not quite overlapping yet, so what you can do as well is resize some of the shapes to create the overlap. And then once you're happy with the alignment of your shapes, you can now merge all these layers, and we can just pinch them all together like this. And now they're all on one layer. And so now of course we need to make these colors flow into each other a little bit on the paper, and the easiest way to do this is to grab your smudging tool. And then I really like to use the iPad watercolor blend brush for this. So I'm going to make the brush quite soft. And what I mean by that is we're going to decrease the opacity ever so slightly. And then the size of the brush is set to around 10. And now with just light pressure, we are going to smudge out the edges here where the shapes overlap. And this creates the illusion of the colors flowing into each other as if it was with real watercolor. This is so nice. This is really one of my favorite parts of this process, to figure out how these colors would flow into each other. And then maybe even think about which one of the colors would win in the real world, which color would take over and then flow into the other color. I really love this part here where the blue and the pink meet, because it creates this beautiful purple. This is really nice. You don't want to use too much pressure when you're doing this, just very soft pressure on your brush, and then even out the colors like this. And so here, of course, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to make the blue win against the dark green, but let's see if we can convince it to flow into it. I think it looks really nice having a bit of blue in the green here. So I'm going to try and convince it to join the green here. And then as well, the light green, I think it looks really nice in the dark green as well. And I also want that yellow to win against the green here. And I think it is looking really nice now. One of the things with watercolor, of course, is that it's creating some irregularities like here, but we want to make those a little bit more pronounced. So we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to set this layer to overlay blend mode. You can choose either overlay or soft light. Soft light will make it slightly lighter, but let's start with overlay. We can always change it later. And then we're going to change the color to black, and the brush we're going to use for this is the iPad Watercolor Accents brush, and you want to make it a little bit soft as well. So the opacity is set to around 70, and then the size I have here is 25. And so now we are going to start on the edge of the shape, and we are going to intensify the edge and press down quite hard on your brush. You can see now how it's creating these super cool edges here. You can let it fizzle out a little bit by taking the pressure off the brush, but not lifting it off the screen. So now we are going to create these shapes all around our circles and play around with the pressure that you're putting on your brush. The more pressure you put on the brush, the more pronounced the edges are. And then when you take the pressure off, it creates a much softer edge. And it looks like the water is drying out here. And so now we are going around our shapes. I'm going to add these darker parts here, and don't worry too much if you don't like the look of it just yet. We are going to refine this a little bit in the next step. So this is just adding those darker edges and creating some of these irregular patterns that you would see on real watercolor paper. Now we are going to go back to our smudging tool, and we're going to refine these edges a little bit and smudge them out. You don't want to smudge them out everywhere because it looks really nice, and you can see how it's creating these really nice patterns. So don't be tempted to smudge it all out. We're just going to do this in some parts, but then other parts look really nice, so I'm just going to leave them. It's quite intense here, so this is where I would probably smudge it out a little bit more, but in lighter parts it looks really nice already, so I don't really want to touch it anymore. And now it's looking so much better already. So now we are going to create another new layer, and this time we are going to set the blend mode to color burn, and we're just going to add a global layer, and then we are going to choose a light gray color. We are going to use the iPad Watercolor Blend brush with the opacity set all the way to the max, and then the size is set to around 35. And now we're just going to tap the Apple Pencil on the screen like this, and it's not that visible, but it just creates a slightly darker texture now, and you can see how this is going to bring out your watercolors even more. And then if you wanted to intensify it a little bit more around the edges as well, feel free to tap a little bit more around the edges. One of the things I'm not quite happy with is this dark edge here in the orange. So now what we can do is smudge this out. So we're going to go back to our original layer and use the smudging tool. This time we are going to make it a bit softer and also a little bit smaller. And so now we can smudge this out and make it softer here. And I think it's looking much better now. The next step is to add some of the doodles, and of course we're going to create a new layer for this as well. And we're going to create the new layer at the top of the other layers, and we're going to use black for this. And now we've got a bit of a challenge, of course, because we don't have any of our lettering or drawing brushes. Because remember the challenge of only using the brushes from the fruit painting set. But what we can do is use that watercolor shape brush and then make it quite small. So I recommend you set this brush to about 3%. And now let's see how this brush works as a doodle brush. Alright, so now let's draw some doodles, and to start with I just want to create a leaf shape here, and I don't want the edges to be super sharp. I think it looks quite nice if they're a little bit irregular. This brush is pretty pressure sensitive, so definitely use that to your advantage and press down a little bit more if you want some more irregularities, and then maybe lift the pressure off to make some finer strokes as well. So now we can just paint these leaves here all around. One of the things that will make this doodle a lot nicer is if you're spending a little bit more time with these connections here and just smooth them out where the leaves and the stem connect. This just makes it look a little bit tidier, I think. So I like to spend a little bit of extra time doing this. And then of course we can create some other shapes as well. This is really where your imagination comes in. I really like drawing little dots and circles and lines, anything that pops into your head. And then I thought it would be also nice to add some white leaves as well. Alright, and then last but definitely not least, of course, we need some splatters. So we're going to create a new layer, and this time I'm actually going to create a new layer below all my doodles. And again, using white and then the splatter brush, because this is the only brush we haven't used yet. And so now we can paint in some little splatters, and it just adds this little bit of magic to our piece. You don't want to go overboard with it. Sometimes I'm just going to undo if I don't like exactly what it looks like. So I'm just going to be quite careful with the splatters that I'm adding here. And I usually think less is more when it comes to splatters. And there you have it. This is a watercolor piece with some doodles. It's super relaxing, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And then I'm also going to put up another couple of super relaxing videos for you. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video.